December, but jeez, it was freezing last night. Oh, the temperature went really down low, especially for around here, and it was like everything was covered in a sheet of ice. And paddies can't handle ice. We just can't. We just don't do ice. It's not our thing, And wow, it's warmed up a lot in the last few hours. But my God, ouch, ouch. So during the Hocus Focus uh, psychic weather report, not last week, the week before, I'd said that there was the volcano of the soul will be probably expressed now in the volcano of reality. And I said, following the volcano, the psychic volcano that happened on the streets of Dublin 2 Thursdays back, and there was probably going to be volcanoes, and they most likely would be in Europe. And sure enough, about 4 days ago, Mount Etna kicked off in Sicily. And due mainly to these solar flares, they do cause, geoseismic activity. And looks like the Iceland one, the big one in Iceland, I can't pronounce the name, is getting ready to blow its top as well. You see, this is the beautiful thing about being a pagan, is that you develop this vision that's almost like a superpower. I wouldn't say it's a superpower, but it's a vision that all humans had in terms of the auguries. And it makes perfect sense. A farmer can look at one or two, could have a flock of 100 sheep or 100 cows, and look at one or two of them, or observe how they stop grazing in a certain area, and he knows there's something wrong. He doesn't have to do blood tests or anything. He instantly knows by the certain behavior that they didn't come as fast in the morning, or they looked a bit. One or two of them looked a bit distant in the milking shed. That a farmer knows. That's how we still have it. But if you're a pagan and you're all constantly seeing symbolism in nature and in human behavior, you realize that just like the astrology, where human behavior is linked and human lives are linked to the movements of celestial objects, as above so below, the same happens to the natural world around. I often wondered, and I speculated in this in my book Sorcery, if the Irish famine was caused by all the hexing that went on in rural Ireland back then. You find these in Sicily too, cultures where they hex the rural people, who hex the shit out of each other. That so many things went wrong that they all had to emigrate. And you had that with Sicily, and you had that with rural Ireland, and you had that with rural Germany. And the folk, just eventually, this family is vexing that family, then the only way to escape these hereditary courses is to emigrate. And I often wondered if the famine was sort of like a gigantic karmic thing for that, for all the hexing that was going on. And like a big, huge black magic thing came back to them. And so things, you see things. And so, you look for signs. So in 2013, I had a very vivid dream about what happened in Dublin the other 2 Thursdays ago. Right down to, I drew pictures of Parnell Square, and what I thought in the dream was tracer bullets. Now I think was the fireworks. They were firing fireworks at the police, the rioters, and these fireworks that represented the volcano, and the volcano was going to come in reality, and it did. It did. So it's very interesting how you can learn and observe things. You develop that kind of I wouldn't say it's sort of an awareness. It's not even it's psychic, yes, but it's more of an awareness. Like, whoa, something's going to go now. And you see, like in like the alternative scene, they're always predicting the big economic collapse is coming, or this is coming, and Nibiru is coming, or all that kind of. It never happens. Or this is the big one. The elites are going to the big lockdown, and the elites. It never happens because I know they're not going to happen because they're not in the psychic weather. You're not being shown them in a way you can relate to, and I often do. When a good magician, when they do a magical act, when they set about doing producing a magical, what's the word? I wouldn't use spell, but you know, um, working, maybe a better word. When they do it and do the end results, they will. A good one should like almost analyze it, like what went right, what came out right, what went right, what went wrong, what would I do different next time? Did I do this properly? And it's this. This is almost like a post examination, you know, après sorcery, you know, and you look into this stuff now. So the same thing with the psychic weather and the auguries. You can go back and say, well, what led to beforehand? And you can see like the videos before the Rona lockdowns happened. In March, sorry, not March, November 2018, 2019, sorry, I was making videos about the Committee on Public Safety in Paris and the first great, national restrictions imposed upon a population for the benefit of the rulers and the committees on public safety and all this. And then it happens in the world a month later. And that was the augury. Or the augury was me making the videos of it. That's it. I just tapped in. That was something was coming. You pay very careful attention to everything, like even the weather this morning. Like it was very, very foggy, and it was not lifting. Freezing fog, but it's lifted now, and you have clarity. So, you know, to me, in the psychic world, that represents, in a localized or even a personal thing, that's something that wasn't understandable, relatable, or you know, comprehensible, is now becoming demystified, literally demystified. And they use these languages are used for just they're not just allegory. So clarity has now been achieved. I can see all the way to the sea out there now. And so clarity, the freezing fog has lifted and clarity is here. And I'll find today that I'll solve a problem I was thinking about, or something I needed to work my head around will work out, and that kind of thing. And that's why I knew the volcanoes would probably come. You, you have no idea how much the perception of reality is related to human consciousness. People just don't know how much it is. And how integral it is to it. Now, I want to talk about something that David Icke did recently. I don't know how recent it was, but it pissed me off. And I wish he would stop this because it's not helping. And I saw a thing where he was doing a kind of like a channeling slash exorcism at the Hellfire Club caves in High Wycombe near London, and in the south of England. And before the video started, he was talking about like the Illuminati and their high satanic feast days of sacrifice. And he mentioned Beltane, and he mentioned Samhain, and he's basically said that pagan festivals are satanic festivals of human sacrifice, and didn't fully clarify if he was talking about, the big shots in the world, the scumbags at the top, are all people who celebrate those feast days. And I was quite taken aback by it because it was ignorant and bigoted, and it was also dangerous language to use because the last thing a pagan would do would be want to sacrifice another human being. And the pagan feast days, they're very sacred, festivals of cycles pertaining to things to do with nature or the harvest. And then I go online, and sure enough, all these people in the truth scene all have are all doing the same thing. They're all claiming that everything from Candlemas, Beltane, Imbolc, even Mabon, which is a made up, modern kind of one, which is bullshit. But even that one they were saying, Samhain, Lunasa, they were all listed as high satanic days of sacrifice of humans, and I'm like, what the fuck? I know there's a lot of a lot of stuff coming out of Christian identity, but I wish he didn't do that because I never really had a problem with him as a person before that. But he said it in he addressed the camera in such a forceful way that these are days of satanic human sacrifice where the elites kill children, and then mentions pagan holidays. It's well out of order. But then again, I get the impression that the audience of that scene are of extremely low intelligence. Like I saw this other guy the other day on the Iconic channel, and he was just spewing the biggest load of bullshit about what the holding a hand over one eye means, and he was claiming that orc, like the way a Cockney would say it, comes from ocular and is also the Egyptian word for. I mean, it was bullshit, just bullshit, on every level, and all sharing it, going, "This is true, true, true." Not one of them checks it, just like they don't check that the pictures, pictures of those world fairs where the buildings are made of plywood, and they think, "Oh, look at the world they took from us." Yeah, amazing. I was quite taken back, but I wish he didn't do it. He should. I would like him to say that, although he may believes that that's the case with the elites. He knows that ordinary pagans don't do that. I wish he would say that. Just to clarify, because now all the David Icke fans all now think that pagans celebrating their feast days are now all sacrificing babies and stuff like that, or involved in Satanism. It's terrible. So this is why I'm always telling you. I know I don't have to tell my audience this, but I always tell you, just always cross-reference and check. Just like the Marina Abramovic stuff that caused mayhem recently. The Marina Abramovic thing was, what do people know about her in the old scene? Alex Jones flailing his arms around and his eyes bugging. That's what they know, and screaming satanic sacrifice to the elites and all this stuff. So that actually made me want to look to see what she was really about. And what I discovered was I really liked a lot of her work. I wouldn't say all of it, but that's okay. I don't like every band's records. But like all of it, and I was like, this woman's very interesting. I discovered, when I looked into her backstory, I discovered she's a very complex, interesting, and quite a brilliant person. And I shared that online, and some people went crazy, and other people were like, "I just think it's modern art is bullshit." And I'm fair enough. That's a fair comment, by the way. I mean, and then others were like, "Well, what? Puzzled to tell me more." And the ones that I did explain it to are like, "Oh, now I see it in a completely different light. You're right." And then you had a case where Olivia on Sun Moon Self did her horoscope the other night. Very, very well done, I might say. And she basically said, "Yeah, what I said about her was true." That's the way to look at her. She's a victim of childhood abuse and a country that was destroyed. And her art, no matter if it offends you or you find it, strange or stupid, that's her way of dealing with that. The loss of your country and the loss of a mother, not having a proper mother, and an abusive mother who was a national hero at the same time, which is just kind of weird. But and then you realize, oh, I get it, totally get it now. It's an exploration of her art is a living embodiment of the life that she's seen Yugoslavia and her family put through. And then you say, okay, I get it. I get it. It's the expunging of the shadow. And then you have to deal with people saying, "Oh, she goes to Epstein Islands." No, she doesn't. Doesn't know that. Or they'll put some of those sick paintings that are in possessed this place and say she painted these. No, she didn't. And this kind of thing. And I think she only met one of them once, and suddenly she's possessed the insider. They don't research. They just scream and they just shout, and they look to people like Alex Jones flailing his arms around for reference. And I'm never going to change. I'm always going to look at the other side, just like at a very early age, I was like, "Who's this guy Lucifer? He sounds kind of cool," and I'm never going to. If there was one thing in life, I'm trying not to be as dogmatic, or to be, orthodoxy in some way of thinking. I'm always looking at the other side of things and trying to say, well, can I find a happy medium, a middle path? And God, it's really cold. Invariably, I do. Sometimes I don't, but invariably I do. Like, there's things you could never find a middle path on. Like, there's no way you could find a middle path on pedophilia. It's just evil and wrong. So there's no middle path there. There's no way you could find a middle path on psychopathy because they're hardwired to be predators. So, but you have to, there's not, what's the middle ground on that would probably be things like these psychopathic surgeons who can do amazing heart operations because they don't give a fuck about the person they're working on. Is that a happy middle ground? I don't think so. I think it's more of a case of like, you know, a useful benefit in some cases. But in things like, controversial art, anything, things that I always try to look at the middle ground. Now, I was watching. Let me take a swig of coffee. I was watching U2 doing a gig in Paris in 2018, and it was one of those. I quite like these kinds of shows where people they get the mobile phone cameras, camera phones, footage, and then somebody mixes them all into a and it looks very cool and arty, and often feels like you're in the gig. If it's done well and it has good sound, this one had superb sound. So it's like, oh, okay. So the gig starts off. It's in Paris, and with that big video screen that goes down the middle of the stadium, and it does that famous Charlie Chaplin speech from The Great Dictator. And we will do this and we will do that, and man must learn to live in peace and all that stuff, and we will fight the evil. And they kept showing Donald Trump and the dictators, and they would show Donald Trump and Putin, and and I'm like, okay, and those who unleashed war, and then they would show the Donald Trump balloon. Donald Trump made no wars. In fact, he ended them all. He stopped them. There were no wars. And yet, here's you two pointing out that Trump is a warmonger, which he isn't, and then they're fraternizing with the likes of George Bush Jr. and the Clintons, and Obama, the butcher of Benghazi. And I'm like, and the band sounded great, but the whole U2 concert was basically an advertisement for the Trilateral Commission with amplifiers, and it felt evil. It felt evil, and I'm saying, what happened to this band? The first four albums are incredible: Boy, October, War, and The Unforgettable Fire. Four perfect albums by a very young band that meant it, that meaned it, and that were original and sounded amazing, and could write songs and incredible live performances. Then they do Live Aid in a very kind of average. Their performance at Live Aid was unbelievably average. And then the next thing you know, they're in America dressed like fucking cowboys and singing about the American dream and all this stuff, and hanging out with presidents and war criminals and all kinds of other peoples. And so something happened. They when they played Live Aid, somebody noticed, and somebody said, put the gun to their head, or made them, as he said in The Godfather, made them an offer they couldn't refuse. Because that makes, I can't understand it. to change. I know bands evolve and everything, but there was just something there that was like, what? And watching that gig, it was evil. It was toxic. It was toxic feeling. It was there was some, and they sounded great and everything, but there was just like it was literally the whole gig was one basically big ad for the Trilateral Commission and to a lesser extent the Clinton Foundation, but mainly the Trilateral. If the Trilateral Commission formed a band and played live, they'd be U2. So that's why I try to go to like what is it just a result of being big that they just sell out? But no, they didn't just sell out. There's lots of bands who became big and didn't sell out. Depeche Mode didn't sell out, and neither did The Cure. They just played gigs. Neither did Queen. But U2 becomes this political. It's just awful, and I felt awful after watching it. And it felt toxic. It felt evil, and I'm not joking. It felt evil. To say that about U2 is something else. But the video images, like it was Trump derangement syndrome. But like, what about you hang out with people like George Bush Senior or Junior? You hang out with Barack Obama. These are your people. They're much worse. And the reason why Putin is up there is because anyone who's against anyone who had a problem with the globalists is deemed an enemy or evil. But yeah, I never hear you never hear Bono talking about Henry Kissinger or any people like that. Donald Rumsfeld. Anyway, there's no hocus pocus tomorrow night. I'm giving Sarah the night off because she's been working really hard lately. And we've been recording a Christmas special and a few other things. So what I will do is I'll put a Vaughn on instead. On Beyond Room 313, you'll get a Vaughn. So I'll do a VON. And that'll be on my Beyond Room 313 channel, the same slot tomorrow night at 8 p.m. So look after yourselves and have a great weekend and try to stay warm. Sanguine Gnosis. Love yous all.